Hi, I'm Tennille from Rainmaker, and welcome to this video lecture for Unit 8 of your program on Advanced Legal Communication. In this unit, we've been learning about some advice and some good tips on making presentations. So what I would like to do in this video lecture is do a kind of mock presentation. And actually what I'm going to do is make a very bad presentation. So some parts might be a little bit exaggerated, but the point is that I want you to see some of the common mistakes that people make when they're giving presentations, because by watching those things you might be able to appreciate even more how distracting or how useless some of those things are. Now, have a pen and paper ready and just jot down the points as you notice them whilst you're watching me give my bad presentation of the things that you think I'm doing wrong and the things that need to be improved. Just for a bit of background, the presentation is going to be on police reform, and you can imagine that my audience is a residents welfare association, a group of people from a residents welfare association in Delhi, and that they're a group of middle class professionals, but certainly not lawyers. That should give you enough background to be able to really critique my presentation. So watch the presentation, make some notes, and then after that's finished, I'll come back and we will just go through some of the points that I hope that you will pick up from the presentation. So I'm Tennille and Duffy, and I'm here today to talk to you about police reform in India. There's a case called Prakash Singh, basically, which started the current movement towards police reform, and that was in 1996 in the Supreme Court. And after hearing that case, the Supreme Court eventually gave 7 directives in 2006 and told the governments that they had until 2007 to comply with that. So all the state governments were meant to be following those 7 directives. And basically there's no state that has been completely compliant with those directives, and some are still to this day completely non-compliant. So as recently as 2010, the Supreme Court issued notices to 4 states, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka and West Bengal, for total non-compliance with those directives. But first I should tell you what those directives are. Number 1 was that there had to be a state security commission to ensure that the state government does not exercise unwarranted influence or pressure on the police, to lay down broad policy guidelines for the police to follow, and to evaluate the performance of the state police. Directive 2 was to ensure that the DGP was appointed through a merit-based, transparent process and to secure a minimum tenure of 2 years. Directive 3 was to ensure that other police officers on operational duties, so like the superintendents of police in charge of districts or station house officers in charge of police stations, they should also... 1 minute. Yeah, hi. I'm just talking to a group. Can I just call you back? Okay, thanks. Sorry about that, everyone. Directives, I was talking about directive number 3. So those police officers should also be given a minimum tenure of 2 years. Directive 4 is that the police needed to separate their different functions of investigation and their law and order functions. Directive 5 was to set up a police establishment board to decide transfers, postings, promotions and other service-related matters of police officers, and also to make recommendations on posting and transfers. Directive 6 was to set up a police complaints authority at every state level to inquire into public complaints against police officers of and above the rank of Deputy Superintendent of Police in cases of serious misconduct, so including things like custodial death, grievous hurt, rape in police custody, and also at district levels to inquire into public complaints against the police personnel below the rank of Deputy Superintendent of Police, again for cases of serious misconduct. And number 7 was to set up a National Security Commission at the union level to prepare a panel for selection and placement of chiefs in the Central Police Organisation, again with a minimum tenure of 2 years. So one of the important things that we've been focusing, one of the important things that we can really focus on at a local level is these police complaints authorities, because if they would be set up properly, They would be one of the main things that would give people in their communities a place to go to complain about police misconduct. If the police complaints authorities were set up properly, they would be independent, and they would have to take complaints, and those complaints would have to be investigated. That's different to what's happening now, because most investigations of police misconduct are done by the police themselves internally, so it's not independent, so there's no guarantee that the investigation is going to be done properly, or that there's going to be anything come out of it that the public can see. So that's one of the main things that you could focus on in efforts to make the police more accountable in your area. So I can give more details if people like of any of those things. Is there any questions? Yeah.
Why hasn't the central government implemented any of these reforms?
So the government hasn't done anything. Doesn't matter. The Supreme Court has been asking them to do it, like I said, since 2007, and really it's up to the state governments to do things. So they haven't really given very good reasons to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court's still monitoring the case, so we'll just have to wait and see about that. Alright, thanks everyone. Alright, so that was my bad presentation. What kinds of things did you pick up or notice that I did wrong? Here's a list on the screen. First of all, let's deal with my presentation skills. First of all, I hope that you noticed that there was no eye contact. I was just reading from papers. I was not paying attention to the audience reaction at all. My voice was unanimated, it was boring, a bit flat. I had my mobile phone on and I took a call. That was an obvious one. And hopefully another obvious one was that I was asked a question and I was very unresponsive to that question. Did you notice anything else about my presentation skills that you noticed? If so, post on the discussion forum. Second of all, let's talk about some of the things that were wrong with the content of my presentation. Again, here's a list on the screen of the things that I have come up with. First of all, I didn't really give a sufficient background or introduction about what I was speaking about. So I know it's a little hard. You might imagine that at the meeting some other things had been discussed, but judging this presentation on its own, there really wasn't enough background information for people. So in line with that, perhaps there was too much assumed knowledge. On my behalf, I was assuming that the people in the audience had too much assumed knowledge. There was a use of legal jargon in there without explanation, and when it wasn't really necessary, and things like the case name that was without really much of an explanation. So again, they're the things that I hope you picked up about the problems with the content of my bad presentation. Was there anything else you noticed about the content? Again, post on the discussion forum if you think you can add to that list. Alright, so that's it for this video lecture on making presentations. I hope you can avoid making all of those mistakes that I just demonstrated so badly to you. Thanks for watching, and in the next video lecture we're going to be talking about interviewing skills.